Today on Call for Two, a quick spoiler-free review of Star Trek Cryptic. Who is this game for? Stay tuned to find out. Just what is Star Trek Cryptic? Well, it's an escape room game. That means it's mostly puzzles with a thin narrative that connects them. There is something unique about this series, though. It's got some little dexterity elements that I'm going to show you. It's told over 3 chapters that introduce new game components as you play, maybe 60 minutes per chapter. It's rated for ages 10 and up. I'll come back to that. You don't need knowledge of the Star Trek universe, but it certainly will help and help your enjoyment of the game. It was released in 2023. There's another game in the series, an Indiana Jones themed cryptic game, and you can pick this up currently for about $26 on Amazon in January 2024. These kinds of games go on sale frequently, however. Now you can only play through this once, but nothing gets destroyed, so you could pass it along, trade it, sell it. And it is a totally offline experience. There's no need for any internet or phone, etc. Now, I've said this is going to be spoiler free, but I am going to show you what's in the box, maybe show you the first couple pages of the puzzle book. If you are really a stickler for that kind of stuff, which I don't think you should be, you could use timestamps to jump around. Okay, so rulebook is just a couple pages here that introduces you to the basic format of the book, the couple kinds of puzzles you're going to encounter and how to do this dexterity element. You can see the lid, and this box bottom actually inverts and forms a component that you can use. Now, I do want to show you the basic components here. You've got a dry erase pen, a couple of stuff, and then 3 envelopes for the 3 missions. They are basically independent missions, and you start out, though, as a lowly officer, and then you make your way up. You've got these tokens that are used to track your score. You've got this very cool tricorder thing, and the different chapters have different pieces that go in here, and they're all like a little bit of a gimmicky thing that you look through, but it actually works well. It's not bad. Now, this plastic sheet is used for the dexterity element. I call it dexterity for lack of a better word. I'm going to show you. And then you've got this big, thick book. This sort of walks you through the 3 chapters and the puzzles. You can see it's nicely illustrated. And then the first half of the book, first 2/3, are the puzzles and story, and then the back are hints and solutions. Now, I do want to show you what each chapter basically looks like. So you've got these traceable things. Maybe we'll just look at one here. So as you're playing this book, you're going to get maybe 3/4 of the things you do are puzzles that are basically described on a page. Here's one. You can see the format. It's a puzzle. You get a little bit of story, then you get a challenge to solve. It's almost always of the form of a phrase or a word, so you'll know when you basically get it right. You're told if you need any extra components, and then you're told how many points you get if you get it correct, how many of these merit coins. And if you take a hint or get it wrong, you'll be told that you lose a couple points. So by the end of each chapter, you'll be told you'll be ranked how well you do based on your score, whether you get promoted or not. It actually is a reasonably good motivation. Now, all of these things, you see there are 4 or so in the first chapter. Each chapter has a whole bunch of them. They all have the same flavor, though. that you've got a starting point, some obstacles, and someplace you're trying to go. You put this little plastic overlay on top. You mark out your starting point, but nothing else. And then you're supposed to put this far enough away, one pen length, and then you're supposed to sort of draw the path that you think is safe to your target. It helps to have another dry erase because this one goes out. And then you flip it over, you see how well you did. For every color obstacle you hit, the game will instruct you to deduct some points. They almost all have this flavor. Okay, that's what I call the dexterity element. And then each of the chapters tends to have one little insert for the tricorder that will be used probably in only one puzzle. And then you might have a couple other items in each envelope that's different. Pieces of a puzzle, sometimes things that spatially go together. Then you've got these, which work with the box top occasionally. And just to show you how much story you'll get, here's a little page prologue. Then you got puzzle, a little bit of story, and the dexterity element. And you're always told what you need, and it goes on like this. And you've got the first chapter, then the second chapter, then the third chapter. So that gives you some idea of the components in the box. Let's talk about the positives here, and there are quite a few of them. The narrative is light, but it's very true to Star Trek. If you are a fan of Star Trek series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, etc., you will feel at home here. You're going to get like a tour of the whole world, all the different races, occasionally characters. It really does feel like Star Trek, and even the puzzles have a sort of true to Star Trek vibe. There is a lot of variety of puzzles here, and they're almost all quite good. I was warned here that the Indiana Jones Cryptic was too easy really for kids. I don't think that's the case here. There are some reasonably difficult puzzles here, maybe medium, some on the easier side, some on the harder side. There is something quite special about most of the puzzles too that I really enjoyed, and that is a lot of the puzzles have this flavor of when you read what it wants and the items you have to solve it, frequently you don't know what to do. It's not that you don't know how to solve it. You don't even understand at first what the game wants from you, what format the answer will be. Just it takes you a while. So it feels like a lot of these puzzles are actually sort of multi-stage. The first stage is just figuring out, what does the game want? What's the answer going to look like? How do I even think about solving this? So in that sense, I was very pleasantly surprised here for the most part, at least for the first 2/3 of the game. It is nice to have the game broken up into 3 chapters. They feel like almost 3 standalone little games, but it's nice to play one, you play a session and then another day you come back and play the other one. The narrative is enjoyable. It's nothing earth-shattering, but it does help motivate you through the puzzles. The dexterity element, this tracing element, is mostly harmless. I mean, there was no real enjoyment on my part for doing it, but you can do it very quickly. You can, if you really want to stick to the penalties of the score, it's not a big deal. If you had a kid, I could absolutely see some people and some children really enjoying this. It is, if you take it seriously, it could be a little bit fun trying to figure out what the best way to do it. Occasionally, there's a little strategic element. I would also say the scoring system does work here. It is actually the way I think these kinds of puzzle games should work for scoring. That is, you lose a couple points for taking a hint. It's a little bit of a motivation to not take hints. And then you lose points if you get it wrong. But there's no There's nothing here is timed. There's no need to go on the internet. It's all self-contained in that book. Now some negatives. I was really hoping, 2 chapters into this, I was thinking this is a home run. I can't wait to be able to recommend it to everyone. And then the last chapter really sort of hit the rocks, hit the reef. And so the first 2 chapters are really surprisingly good. I think there are some really excellent puzzles that really make you scratch your head, and they're clever and very satisfying. The last chapter maybe had the most interesting story, although it's thin, but had some of the more disappointing puzzles. And the finale puzzle, the last puzzle of the whole game, was very frustrating, felt like it did not belong, sort of let down the game. And then there was another puzzle in that last chapter that didn't make any sense. The hints did not explain it, the solution did not explain it, and I still don't understand what it was all about. And I think that points to another issue with the hints and solutions here. It is great that you don't have to go online for any of that, but there is a lot to be desired about the hints and solutions. First of all, you're reading through this book. You're progressing linearly through this book, and there's a story unfolding. That's enjoyable. But for each puzzle, to look up a hint or solution, you have to turn to the back of the book. Now, that's not bad. It's fairly easy to find that stuff. But the hints are inadequate. The solutions are inadequate. If you really get stuck on a puzzle, there's a good chance that the solution is not really going to explain to you how to solve it. They're very brief little paragraph explanations. And then the other sort of miss here is that there's little bits of narrative in the solution parts at the back of the book. So the little bits of continuing the story, resolving it, are in the back. And that means that after you play it, after you look up your answer, when you want to go back and figure out what is this, what's supposed to be going on in the story, it's going to be difficult because chunks of the story are told in the back of the book only when you look up by keyword. It's sort of a miss. It's a shame they couldn't figure out how to make this a linear experience where you're just proceeding through the book as a story and getting your answers. It would have made everything flow a little bit better. I think, again, as another little nitpick, this book, which is really a pleasure to go through, is very hard to lay flat. There's a bunch of puzzles where you need to sort of lay tiles out on the book or keep the book open, and that's frustrating and hard to do. At one point, the spine broke, a page fell out of it. Just not, it's a shame because in other respects, the book is a real pleasure to use. All right, final thoughts. I would give this game probably on balance a rating of 8 of 10 if you're a Star Trek fan. I wanted, as I said, I really thought after the first 2 chapters that this was going to be a 10 of a 10, and I couldn't wait to recommend this to everyone. I think with that last chapter letting it down a bit, I have to add my cautions, and it brings down the rating a bit. The puzzles, as I said, especially in the first 2 chapters, some of them are quite good. I mean, really satisfying. But they are hard enough that I think a young child, and this game is rated at ages 10 and up, a young child's going to have quite a bit of difficulty with many of these puzzles. So I think unless you have a real savant of a child who's willing to take their time, maybe do 1 puzzle a day, maybe is willing to look at the hints, I think if not, you may be better off having an adult and a child. I do think adults could play this game. The dexterity elements, that's part where it cuts the other way, where I think an adult is likely to not have that much fun. Maybe if you're playing with a larger group, 2 or 3 people, there'll be 1 person in the group that actually enjoys that. But I do think it sort of hints at the ideal audience for this game is sort of an adult and a younger child who both love Star Trek. If you have that combination, I think this might be a no-brainer because you could have fun really working as a team here. As I said before, you don't need to be a fan of Star Trek, but boy, will it make a difference here in your enjoyment of the game and of the storyline. I do think this is a little bit of a love letter to Star Trek. So if you're a super fan of Star Trek and puzzle games, this is probably a no-brainer, especially if you can pick it up on sale. These games do go on sale frequently for like 15 bucks, 20 bucks. If you can get at that price, hard to go wrong. I'd love to hear if you feel differently here. Do you think my judgment of these puzzles as being medium difficulty, too hard for a young child to solve alone, is that wrong? I'd like to hear it. And I'll see you on the next video.